Okay, so can we get started? I'm glad to be with you all. I can't hear myself, but I guess I'm not supposed to be able to. And I will just ask for you all to switch the PowerPoint. Do I get started, Luis? I can't hear you. Let me unmute everybody or unmute everybody. Let me see. Okay. Do I start, Luis? Let me check the chat here. All right. So we have the first slide going that we could share, please. After the Sadlier one. It's got my information. I'm glad to be with you all. I just wish I could be live with you all. I miss you all so much. Next slide, please. So this is going to be the new directory for Catechesis. My apologies. I had made a couple of corrections on my last one that I sent Luis, but if you could click the next slide, that is what the book looks like. The book looks like that, and I have my book here with me. And, you know, it's really good to buy it if you have a chance. I have to forewarn you that it's going to be really challenging to read because it really gets to you in a lot of ways where you're wondering, I know I was wondering, what step do we go to from here when it comes to teaching religion? You know, listening to the bishop's message this morning, it was really, really awesome on the challenges that he was giving us. And it was really great to hear him telling us what he did to have compassion, to rethink and don't get after people. But at times you want to, I just always think about Padre Pio and Mother Teresa of Avila, that, they would get so angry. And I guess sometimes we get to that point where we just want to. Click the next one, please. I have a question. You know me, I'm always asking questions. Why the new, and it's not the new catechism, it's the new directory. And why do we think we needed it? If you could put some of the things in the chat, what do you think? Why do you think we needed this new directory of catechesis? And why? Why do you think Pope Francis spent time to get all this done for us? Why? What do you think we needed? Can somebody put it in the chat? Maybe a couple of remarks, a couple of things you're thinking about. Anybody? Nobody wants to put anything in the chat. Well, I'm going to make a couple of things that I've thought about. I think because, number one, we've had such a decrease in number in our kids wanting, our young adults, our adults wanting to participate in liturgy, vocations, catechesis. Everywhere we look, our numbers were decreasing. And I think we were really challenged on what to do with that. And on some of the things, I landed up picking the area of catechesis and the process of evangelization. So if we could click the next slide really quickly. I put the numbers in for you of where they're from. And it says the first proclamation, the task of every Christian, is based on that go, which Jesus gave us as instruction to disciples, which implies going out, making haste, accompanying, thus becoming one true missionary disciple. It therefore cannot be reduced to the conveying of a message, but it first of all sharing the life that comes from God and communicating that joy of having met the Lord. Being Christian is not the result of an ethical choice or a lofty idea, but the encounter with an event, a person, which gives new horizon and a decisive direction. Have we revisited? What are we doing? I look at this and I think about, do you remember how you had that aha moment? Because if you remember right here, it says, it implies going out and making disciples and having somebody convey that message. Mine was on a retreat. Mine was on a retreat that conveyed a message of loving God, of challenging. How many times have you gone back to think about your calling? Have you gone back to think about what got you to do what you're doing? When it talks about accompanying and bringing people to an encounter, are we just going through like a mechanism of just making sure we have these things fulfilled? Have they learned all their prayers? Have they missed too many classes? Have we ever sat down and talked to sometimes? I know there's so many kids, but there's so many people that we could get to volunteer and help us in catechesis, and maybe go down and having smaller classrooms so that we can have a more personal encounter with the catechist. The relation. Bishop mentioned that this morning too. Relation. Our relationship. We love those coffee moments, those pan dulce moments. And be open to everyone, because nowadays the way things are done with these young adults, it's kind of scary to hear some things, because we didn't have that growing up. But when you sit down and talk to these kids, and they're all about computer, and they're all about tech, and they're all about gaming, and they don't know too much about how to set up a DVD. They might, because they stream everything. Life is so different. And how are we reaching those kids, How are we reaching those young people that are challenging us? If we could go to the next slide. This is coming from the area of goals of catechesis. What is the goal of catechesis? First off, to help the human have an encounter. What is your encounter with serving the Lord at your community? How can you have this happen to have them want to serve the parish? Those are things we're always banging our head about. Those are things I'm thinking of, because how many times do we need so many volunteers? It's the same people over and over and over and over. And I think this is the reason we have this book, because it's challenging us on how do we invite more people to get involved. If you could click to the next one, please. We have a definition here on 75. It says, at the center of every process of catechesis is the living encounter. At the center. Accordingly, the definitive aim of catechesis is to put people not only in touch, but in communication, in intimacy with Jesus. How only He can lead us to the love of the Father and the Spirit and make us share in the life of the Holy Trinity. Only He can do that. How are we doing that? How are we bringing that to life? Retreats are so powerful, but there's so much work, small groups, when we're teaching catechesis, do we get the children to partner off with someone to share? Even the little bitty ones, when you do activities, they like to see what glitter are you using or what color are you using. It's great to watch the interpersonal relationship when you give them an activity to share Jesus. I remember there was a catechist of mine that came in years ago when we were teaching the living Christ, and she had asked for some pixie sticks and what have you. This was I was the director in Houston, and they were making crucifixes. Well, one little child ended up coming and saying, "Oh, maestra," because she taught in Spanish, and she was very heart heavy when she came to talk to me. And she had been a catechist for 50 years, very formed and very, very good. And she said, "Oh, Miss Martinez," she says, "we really need to pray for the children." And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Really, really?" She says, "I wanted all the children to have a cross at home. That's why I had you bring me the pixie sticks." I said, "Yes." She says, "This little boy asked me, 'Oh, Miss Rodriguez, everybody's drawing the picture of this guy, Jesus. Can I put Freddy Krueger on my crucifix?'" I said, "What?" She says, "Evangelización, Miss Martinez. The evangelization." I think about that comment because he wasn't laughing. He wasn't making joke. He was completely serious about putting Freddy Krueger. That's where we're at. This is from that time. Can you imagine where we're at now? You hear everything that's happening in the news, in the media, the murdering, the killing, the prejudice, the comments, the negativity. How are we bringing, like Bishop said, where they're at to an accompanying of understanding the living Christ? I think if we would bring him to that point, my God, we wouldn't be where we're at, but you would try to tell them truth, people, and oh my God, that everybody gets offended. The other day I was sitting down and just shedding a tear on a situation I had heard, which I cannot share, but I was shedding a tear and I thought to myself, I think if Jesus Christ would say something to us and say what we want to say, would people get offended? Would they say what they say? Everybody's so sensitive about things. I understand we have to be sensitive and very pastoral. But what happened to tough love? What happened to truth of Christ? What happened to the truth? If we share the truth, people start getting hurt, start getting offended. Oh, you're not showing me any love. It's about the love. You're too rough. Jesus wasn't he was very pastoral, very sensitive. He was perfect, but he wasn't always soft about things. One of the times I can remember in the scriptures when he threw the tables over because people were selling things in front of the temple. What were people going to say then? "Oh, I'm so hurt because he broke my stuff on the table. Oh my God. We got to make a picket. We've got to make t-shirts. We've got to go and make a scene because this guy, Jesus, knocked my tables down." When is it going to stop? When is all that going to stop where we can say, I see the face of Jesus in every person, and I don't mean to be offensive to anybody. I just want to teach truth because we're getting confused. Everything's getting hazy. If we can go to the next section on 76. Okay. At the center here. Okay, yes. Catechesis is oriented in what? Oh, so this is the second part. Is oriented in towards forming persons who get to know Jesus and his gospels by liberating salvation even better. Who live a profound encounter with him and who choose him as the way of life. in his very segment, striving to realize in the historical situations in which we live, the mission of Christ, which is the proclamation of the kingdom of God. The proclamation of the kingdom of God. Always remember, the proclamation is what the kerygma, that Jesus died for us. That's the kerygma, everlasting life, that Jesus died for us, came and lived and died for us. Do people really understand and know that? And that's the challenge I want to give you, is how can we revisit that, bringing that to life? And how can that change our way that we teach? How can we bring that to life? Because what we've been doing is not working. That's how come a lot of times when I came to you, I would bring you movies, because maybe that evangelization would help the students, help your family, help you, help me, our faith to grow, to burn, to ignite. This is what we need to do to bring in this proclamation of the kingdom of God, that Jesus died and rose for us, and that we could be like Mother Teresa when they said to her and the Sisters of Loreto, what are you doing? You're leaving. What do you think you can accomplish? It's just you going out there. Well, it's just us teaching our class. And I'm going to say to you what she said to them. It's one person at a time. Because in every single one of them, I see the face of Jesus. And every single one of our children and every single person that we pass, whether we understand what they look like or their color or the way that they act, we have to remember in them is the face of Jesus. Can you see that in them? Next slide, please. And this next slide is number 76. If you can move to the next slide, please. It's going to say, hello? Can we move it over to the next slide? Thank you. The encounter with Christ involves the person in his totality, heart, mind, and senses. It does not concern only with the mind, but with the body and above all the heart. So many times I hear people say, oh, I don't want to go on retreat because I don't want to share. Oh, I don't like those charismatics. You know, this week I was with the group on NACADEM, the National Hispanic Organization. And there was quite a few people, and there's an organization called La Red, a lot of young people, all young adults. Do you know that the majority of them all said they like and participate heavily in the charismatic movement? That might not be from our generation. That may not be who we are, because we're about conservative and music and quiet and not sharing, but not today's gen. They want to know what the other person's thinking. They want to have you listen to them. They want to cry. Many of them said, we want to get involved. We want to participate. We want to be part of our parish. We want to be there, but we're not invited. I couldn't help but just sit and think, wow, am I doing that? I began to think, am I doing that to these people? Am I doing that to these children, to these young adults? I wondered, it challenged me. It challenged me heavily to do that. That's an area that I want you to revisit and see if there's ways that you can get them to share, because they're not afraid to unmask, but maybe we are. Again, Christ was never afraid to open up with his disciples, with his apostles. Why are we afraid to do that? So go ahead, and if you could go to the next slide, please. It's going to continue on number 76 here. It joined in this by the other dimensions of life, the liturgical sacrament experience, the effective relationships in community life, and the service of one's brothers. Something essential in the fact takes place for both of the new men. That's in Ephesians. and the personal spiritual transformation. When we get that encounter, that moment with Christ, we transform. When we fall in love with that Jesus, that guy they talk to us about, we want to start going to Mass. That's ultimately what we have to start rethinking. How can we make catechesis in any form, from children to adult, alive? Is it making small groups? Is it taking the group outside to look at the nature, maybe for today? Is it to tell them your own personal story, because maybe your own transformation is very different and very personal, and maybe even hard to share? But if it's going to bring somebody to God, isn't it worth doing that? So many times we're so afraid of what people are going to say and how they're going to see us, how they're going to look at us. I don't understand, and maybe sometimes people might say, well, you know what, Rita needs a little bit of a filter. I have a filter, but I also feel that when it comes to Christ, why are we afraid to share? Our life is so short. Before you know it, we're going to blink and we're gone. And we're in eternity for either heaven or hell, and hell exists. Padre Pio and many of the saints have said it. And so many times I hear people say, oh, there's no hell, we live in hell. Well, you know what? I think we get a taste of heaven and hell on earth. But I believe there's a hell, and I know there's a heaven. So what are we doing to have people want to desire that and change and be part of and participate in? We need to revisit what we're doing and ask the young adults, ask the teens, ask the children, what would you like to do today? What's going on in your world? Hey, what's happening in school that makes things difficult for you? When I used to write skits and I got close and I had 90, now I have almost 100 godchildren. I asked them, what's going on? I was on the phone late last night with one of my godchildren that's having some marital problems. They still call on me. And I'm not even married, but I'm giving the advice. Why? Because I look through the eyes of Christ on sacramental marriage. And what can I tell them to bring them together? If you could go to the next slide, please. It's going to go into 77 now. If we can go into number 77. And it says catechesis. If we can move to the next slide, please. Hello, can we go to the next slide? There we go. In number 77, there's a couple of things I want you to keep in mind. This is in closing on this section. Catechesis makes the initial conversion ripen and helps Christians to make a complex meaning to their existence, educating them in a mentality of faith, keeping with gospel to the point of gradually coming to feel like and act as Jesus did. How are we bringing this to life? How are we bringing this to life for them, to have them want to feel, think, and act like Christ? You look at today's world, Christ is missing. He's truly missing somewhere. I pray all the time that we come back to Christ. People think it's about the love. And I look at these young people and I say, who was truly the love? They look at me all confused. Some look at me and say, we are. No. Perfect agape love was Christ, who brought us the kerygma to life. Christ. Revisit your programs, and it's going to be difficult to do that because where are you going to come? But I want you to remember this. If you could go to the next slide. Remember fear? I've shared this with you before. Fear is what? Next slide. False evidence appearing real. FEAR. If you could change the slide, please. There it is. False evidence appearing real. Don't be afraid to change the way that you think. Don't be afraid to try something new. All that's going to happen is you're going to fail at it. We get up and we try something new. We're not Jesus. We're not perfect. Things are going to fail in our life. Maybe we feel like we failed in our life, but Jesus doesn't think we're failures. Jesus thinks we're wonderful. So keep revisiting that. If we can go to the next slide, we're going to go into 79, and this is tasks of catechesis. The faith, in fact, demands to be known, celebrated, lived, and turned into prayer. In order to form believers for an integral Christian life, catechesis, therefore, pursues the following tasks: leading to knowledge of the faith, initiating in the celebration of the mystery, and forming the life of Christ, teaching to pray, and introducing to community life. Are we forming the love and the look to the life of Christ? Are we wanting to pray for our people? And do we keep praying for that to come to life for us so we can give it to others? If not, why? What's stifling us and what's stifling them? That's the question we have to ask so that we could accompany them and teach them. And that's a big word in this directory, is accompany, journeying. Do you remember when people journeyed with you to teach you Jesus? Teach me Jesus? I do. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those people. Are they wanting to get involved in the parish community? If not, why? Did they have a bad experience? Do we need to show them a good experience? Do we need to accompany them to help us in what we're doing for the parish? Revisit that. Be honest and be open to something that you might hear that you may not like, that I may not like. That's part of life, and it's going to be painful, but we've got to revisit it. I know it's kind of heavy stuff because we need to change. If you could go to the next slide, you know I'm going to quote John Paul somewhere throughout this. What does he say here? Be not afraid. Open the doors to Christ. God works in concrete and personal affairs of each of us. Don't let the time that the Lord gives you run off as if everything else were due to chance. With this expression of hope, I send you all the depths of my heart. My blessing from the depths of his heart. Don't be afraid. Open the doors to Christ. Oh, John Paul, help us as we try to implement this new catechism and bring it to life. If we're not allowing these people to feel this way, we need to rebuild. We need to revisit. If you could go to the next slide. What did Padre Pio say? Pray fast and don't worry. Pray fast and don't worry. If you could go to the next slide, please. This is still on the task. A catechist, in fact, that sets up an opposition between the content and the experience of faith would show itself to be worthless. Without the experience of faith, one would be deprived of true encounter. That's right, with God and with one's brothers and sisters. The absence of content would block the maturity of faith, keeping one from finding meaning in the church and living the encounter and exchange with others. If we don't share and we don't have fellowship, we're going to die. How hard is this for us? This is so new. Not being able to see you, say hello to you, take pictures with you, hug you, check how things are going. It's difficult for me. I feel like I'm talking to a computer, but I know you're there because I see you're there. There's 83 of you. But I wish I was with you. Doesn't that make a big difference? Exactly what it says here. A true encounter. A true encounter with each other is important. So how much more important is it for us to give a true encounter with God to the people of God? We're so blessed to be here with him, to serve him, to help show others about him. But God knows we need John Paul's prayer to open a door new to Christ, to change our way. And we can move into the next slide. Please. And this is going to come from the introduction to community life. What makes this possible is cultivating the spirituality of communion. Thus makes one to see the light of the Trinity reflected in the face of merely a brother as well, feeling though the profound unity of the mystical body that he is part of himself, sharing his joys and sufferings in order to perceive his desires, taking care of his needs, offering him a true and profound friendship, looking above all that what is possible in the other in order to cherish him as a gift from God, helps one to reject the selfish temptation that lead to competition, careerism, distrust, and jealousy. Oh my God. When I read that, I thought, is that Latinos or what? The crab bucket theory. What's crabs? When you put crabs in a bucket, we don't need to put a lid because one tries to get out, the other one yanks it down. What does it say at the very end? God wants to help us to reject the selfish temptations of this competition, careerism, distrust, jealousy, la envidia. Gosh, when I read that, I thought, oh my God, because we don't want to build each other sometimes. We truly need those eyes that Mother Teresa said to see Jesus in each other, because if you teach somebody and they become greater than you ever were, what a gift that is, that God's going to come and tell you, come in, your time is done. Welcome, my good and faithful servant. You've built so many children in his kingdom. I pray that when it's that time for me, that God will do that for me, because I've taught his children. And if they get bigger than me, I don't care. And it's a true experience, because when I was vice president of FCH and I was going to be in the Quinto Encuentro seat at La Red, there was a young boy named Peter Dutran, and I think he's come and spoken in Brownsville. No one knew him that much yet. He was just in Miami. He was getting up there, was young. I looked around at our officers. I was already going to be 50 at the time. I said, Peter, you're going to do it. What? I said, tú nomás vas. You just go. And now he's gotten to be bigger. He's gotten to be renowned. And now I'm in his audience. I'm so proud. I'm humbled. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I can build that opportunity for Christ. I'm grateful that I could do that for Jesus. I'm grateful that I can serve my God that way. It may be difficult to rethink, to rebuild, but always remember, Jesus is all you have right now. He only has you. How can we serve him? Please get a copy of this. And you can get a copy of my PowerPoint so you can go back and revisit. We need to read it over and over. I read it 3 times. And pobrecito, my libro ya está todo ya. Pobrecito, I need to get another one so that I can take it around, because this one looks ya. I love you guys. And I love being in Brownsville. I can't wait to hear the things that you've done and how things have grown. You have an awesome bishop. You have an awesome director. And I know you yourself are awesome. I look forward to hearing of the stories of change for the near future. We could go to the last, I think, slide. We have another slide. I'm sharing with you some prayers that we have that are absolutely free online at Sadlier website. And the prayer I think that I'm going to share with you, if we could go to the next slide, please. It comes from our Sadlier website. It's free, and you just have to download it. And this is beautiful. It's a prayer for a catechist soul. Gracious God, open the door to my soul and bring me a peace and perspective. May I learn to be at home with myself and to extend a hospitable welcome to your dwelling spirit. Open the door to my heart and grace me with the compassion of understanding. May I see with the eyes of Christ all those I am called to catechize. Open the door to my mind and soften my thoughts. May I make room for both ideas and imagination. Ever aware of the knowledge is a gift of your spirit. Give me a joyful soul, heart and mind, so that I may share with others the great news of salvation and redemption. Through your Son, Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen. I wouldn't be me, guys, if I hadn't shared with you a couple more movies. If you haven't had a chance to see the new Fatima movie, it's through the perspective of Lucia. If you haven't had a chance to go on Netflix and see the movie Greater, watch it. If you have people having marital problems, have them watch Fireproof and The War Room and Courageous. It helps our soul. Journey with your people. Catechize your people. And know that I'm here. And guess what? I have a new title. If you can go to the next slide. I'm the new Bilingual Catechetical Strategic Sales Consultant for Sadlier. ¿Qué es eso? I'm still learning, but I'm always here to serve you all. I miss you, and no, next slide. If I don't see you anytime soon, you know I'm going to see you every Sunday. Next slide, please. In the Eucharist. I love you guys. I'm sorry I didn't connect in time. I wish we could be in person, and I'll see you all at 3, and hopefully this time we'll have it down. And don't be afraid. Remember, open the doors. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Love you. Hasta luego. Bye-bye.